Okay, so we are looking at, I guess this is day 3, but it's PowerPoint 2 in our professional development or leadership, business, and sales class. I always think this class should be called professional development. That's like my favorite version of this. So if I call it that, that's not the official name. That's me making a mistake. But leadership, business, and sales, PowerPoint 2. We are going to look at writing cover letters here. So this is actually content that is not directly in your book. So we may throw like a homework question your way related to cover letters. It may be in this test, but cover letter information is not necessarily something that's in your NASM textbook. Therefore, it can't be on your CPT test. But you guys will remember me saying this a million times. The materials at Sochi are oftentimes beyond what is in your regular textbook. This is kind of an example of that. In fact, you can even see it here. You'll notice how this says chapter 6. That's not chapter 6 of your textbook. I think the person when NASM made these professional development slides that went out, I think that like this was created out of a textbook that they probably had as like a supplemental material. And so like I've looked it up, and it's like how to get a job in the recreation world, and which is why like you're going to see some examples in the next few days that are like things to put on your resume, but they're all very recreation based rather than just like gym based. But the information in the PowerPoints, like slides, are based for you. The examples the examples are weird. They're like examples for like a print agency, and then an example for like a person who's trying to like manage a shuffleboard thing in a retirement home. But the information in the PowerPoints is directly related to like the content we're talking about. So we're not going to have quite as many notes today. The note list will be relatively short. But we're going to talk about like how to get cover letters, and then I've got an online template that I want everybody to use so that everybody walks out of this class with an online cover letter. And you should be able to just email it to me. If you're from a computer, obviously that's going to be pretty easy. You can just download the document and send it directly to me. If you're a phone person, it should be pretty easy to just like edit on your phone. Like Google Docs has a really easy to use format, and then you can literally upload it just by sending it in one click to me. We're gonna do that for for resumes as well. So today our objectives are to understand like what a cover letter is, understand a little bit about reference requests as well, job acceptance letters, job declination letters, and resignation letters. So reference request letters are becoming less popular. That's usually like if you want a reference from someone. A lot of time in today's world, because of how connected we are, it's usually just very easy to send somebody an email and be like, hi, I thought I could use you as a reference. You used to be my employer. And that's a great way of doing it. If you guys ever want me as a reference, by the way, you're always welcome to. I think I've mastered the art of a good reference letter because like I've got like what do they call it? Like they call it a backhand compliment. I have like the backhand backhand compliment. That's only a negative thing. Anyway, it's like I've mastered the art of making something be like, oh well, there is this one slight fault, and it's only a good thing. So it's like a humble brag. I think if you ever want to use me as a reference, I think that I've got that technique down pretty well, which always makes it seem like I'm being very sincere. Yeah, so reference request letters are becoming a little less popularized. That's really only going to be for somebody that like you barely know. Most people have like a network of people that like, it involves like texting your friend and being like, hey, can I use you as a reference? Job acceptance letters, that's another one that is slightly coming out of style nowadays. They're definitely still around. Just like you have like a job offer letter, like companies will give you like an offer letter. That's something that is like still very common. A lot of times people will like write an acceptance letter, and what that's for is just to ensure that both parties have in writing they've agreed upon like what the hourly rate is, like how many hours they're going to be working, things like that. And so like a lot of times in job acceptance letters, it shows that you're being very professional by like accepting that. In gyms, it's not going to be super common. Like I've only had to write one job acceptance letter for all the jobs that I've had ever. Not even this one actually. So not very common. Now, job declination letters and resignation letters. Job declination letters, I think, is usually handled a little bit better by email, but resignation letters are a very professional thing that you definitely want to do. That gives a very hard date of like, when it's agreed upon that your last day will be. It also just shows that you're very professional and oftentimes gives you an opportunity to make sure that you're not burning a bridge behind you. And if you ever want to come back to that job, it's available to you. So those are actually kind of a big one. But the big, 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 most important one that is like still mandatory for pretty much every job you are going out for is going to be a cover letter. And that's the primary thing we're talking about today. So cover letters are your first point of contact. Like, when I was like hiring for teachers at Sochi, I always took the ones that had cover letters much more seriously. I mean, all of them were coming in through like Indeed.com, and I'd have like a solid resume and stuff, but and I tried to be like conscious of it and not like, because some people just are not super tech savvy, and so maybe they were having trouble like uploading a cover letter through Indeed, and so I always try to like be aware of that and be like a little lenient and forgiving of stuff like that. But I could not help the fact that just every time I had a cover letter, I just thought that person was more professional. They instantly had a couple points on their side that somebody else didn't have. Um, Even with like trying to not necessarily think that way, I think it's just instinctive. So cover letters are a great way to show like you're a professional, and it's also a good way for somebody to get an idea of like what your voice is, get an idea of like who it is they're talking to. And that's the goal of like an interview, is to put your best foot forward and make a really good impression and get somebody on your side. So a cover letter, ooh, that's not the right font size. Going to be the first point of contact for a job application, which acts as a great way to open up dialogue with potential employers. Kind of a made-up definition, but like, hey, I think it works. So that's what a cover letter is, right? So it's your first chance to kind of get somebody to start thinking about like hiring you, right? A lot of times, like, you'll be on websites like Indeed.com, or even just like if you see something on Craigslist that's like email john@mygym.com, like it's like, oh, you're great. So then you have their email because you saw a job posting. That email that you're sending can act as a cover letter. But one of the ways that, like, one of my favorite things to do is just to have a very brief email with an actual attached cover letter. And then obviously like an attached resume. And so it'll be like, hi, my name is Brad Thompson. I'm applying for this position here. I've attached a cover letter and a resume related to the job posting. Look forward to hearing back from you, Brad. So I'll keep the email super, super, super short, and then I'll have like a cover letter that's in there that's like, hi, my name is Brad Thompson. I've been in the fitness industry for this many years, blah, 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 blah. And then they can take a look at my resume as well. A lot of people will instead, and that's the method that I personally prefer, very personally. A lot of people, you can often just use that first email as your cover letter. And so you want to kind of treat it like a cover letter and write very professionally, make sure that you have like it formatted in such a way that, is consistent with how a cover letter looks. And so you can, just go directly into, hi, I'm applying for this position, big long cover letter, well, not too long. And then attach your resume and be like, I've attached my resume. If you need any further information, please contact me here. So But either way, no matter whether you're doing that version or the other, a cover letter is your first point of contact. This is the first chance for somebody to kind of hear your voice, you know? So it is definitely mandatory. Well, okay. Now it is mandatory to submit cover letters in the recreation and leisure business, right? Mandatory meaning like they won't even look. Whoops, hold on. Hey, Raph, do me a favor and slap the mute button for me. Thanks. So when it says mandatory, is it mandatory in the sense that like they won't even consider you without a cover letter? That's not necessarily 100% true, but this PowerPoint is kind of like an example of like sometimes the way I like to exaggerate and talk. It's like, look, it shows like such a higher level of professionalism. It's like if you really want to get a job, you want to make sure that you stand out and you are the best candidate. One of the best ways to do that is to get your cover letter in. It just shows that you are more professional than the next guy or the next gal, you know? Applications, we're just gonna put that in the second part. Applications without a cover letter show a lack of professionalism. You know, and like, maybe you're applying for a job that's super laid back, you know? I still think like the cover letter, I don't think being professional can ever hurt you, but being unprofessional, and maybe it won't, and being professional might not always help you. Like, we'll be totally honest. Like, I think 99 out of 100 times it will, but let's talk about that one time. Maybe that doesn't have a positive effect. Maybe it just has a neutral effect. But I cannot imagine a scenario ever where writing a cover letter could hurt you, like in any capacity. So types of cover letters we got. There's a couple of different ones out there. There is application letters that are actually responding to a known job opening. That's sort of the most common. You're going to see a job posting online, and you are going to, apply for it by, you'll see an email at the bottom. Oftentimes, or maybe it's even like a physical mail-in. That's pretty rare. That happens sometimes in LA, the physical mail-in ones, but it's usually like trainers for like the TV industry. But let's just see here. If we go like personal trainer jobs, I'm just gonna punch in my zip code, 914. All right, well, they're posting out there. I've seen stuff like this coming through my email because it's still, I just always keep it through my email, but I'm like wondering if they're actually happening or not. Because it's like places like this is a traditional gym. And like, this is very clearly like your classic, I think this is just on an auto renew thing and they left it alone. Let's see if we can find one that like clearly is like, hey, it's a COVID world. We're looking for somebody who wouldn't mind being a personal trainer over the internet. Okay, here's a HIIT fitness instructor. Is this one? No. Well, you know what? It doesn't really matter for my example anyways. I just need one random picture here. I was just kind of curious if I could find one that was related to this. The one's coming through my email, definitely. So let's go here. All right, so now I've found a job that I want to apply for. I can apply on Glassdoor, snag a job, the local job bulletin, job ticker, Mobilize, all these like different things, right? These are all like just pre-existing sites that are out there. And they're gonna ask me to kind of fill out, their version of like a resume. And so these are all like companies that are gonna have really basic things here. So if I click Glassdoor, and then it takes me to, the same thing. They're looking for somebody who has a NASM CES and PES, two things that you guys are going to study. Yeah, and so then I would go like apply now. I would enter my email address, and then go through like the process of kind of filling out all of their information. So once I get to, at some point I'm going to get to on this page, it will say like, hey, do you want to upload your resume and your regular resume or your cover letter, right? So eventually, if I go through this whole process, it'll have a section where I can upload a document. And so if I upload a cover letter on that document, I've given myself a leg up because everybody is applying through this website, right? Like everybody's sending their resumes and job applications in through this website. But if I'm the person who put in like a paragraph explaining my experience in the fitness industry, like you guys are coming to Sochi, like if you put that on your resume, that's great because it shows that you have education. But if you get a chance to like say sentences like, hey, while I was at Sochi, we did this hands-on. I know some of you were like, we haven't done hands-on anything. We're on the internet. We will get to hands-on. But like we did hands-on training in Sochi's gym. Like I got to work as if I was working with real clients. I have experience, even though I might not necessarily have like work experience. And so like that little explanation, again, is another chance for you to kind of get a leg up. So that's a cover letter for a known job opening. Now, the other side of things that you can do are prospective letters. So prospective job letters, cover letters are really cool because this is for, like, let's say you don't know if there actually is a job opening, but it's just your dream job and that's where you want to work and like you keep your eye on that. You can send in prospective letters that say like, hey, you know, I don't know if you guys are actually hiring right now, but working for your company is exactly what I want to do. Here's some information and I've attached my resume. And so it just kind of shows that like you're super fired up. That is the type of letter that I wrote initially for Sochi. And then I found, this is back when Sochi was only in North Hollywood. There was no Reseda location. And I sent in a letter and I was like, because I was like driving, man, there used to be like students in Sochi shirts just constantly in like North Hollywood. And I would like drive through and I would just see like Southern California Health. And so I was like, what the heck is that? And finally one day I like Googled it and I was like, oh, it's a school for personal trainers. I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I would like to do. I'd like to teach that. And so sent him a letter and I was like, hey, I would love to get into teaching. And it sounds exactly like your company is a cool place for me to start. Here's all of my information. Here's why I think I'm qualified. And the guy emailed me back and he was like, you know, it's crazy. We are moving to Reseda soon, and some of the teachers don't want to work in Reseda, so they are leaving. We're going to have job openings in about a month. And so then like a month later, like I applied in a very traditional manner, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for that prospective letter. So those are another really cool type of letter. And then there's also networking letters. Networking letters are just like request for information or request for usually like assistance in something that you're trying to do. So, you know, like I said, we do these cover letters in class, right? We had a student who actually, for her actual cover letter, she came to Sochi, she wanted to learn about personal training, but like her passion was actually like, she was like a model and she was more passionate about like clothing brands and like getting her own clothing, like a line of fitness clothing launched. So she had like people lined up for like fabric and things and tailors and things like that. Can you tell I know nothing about the process of making clothes? But she had like a bunch of that stuff already picked out. And then there was this woman on Instagram who was like an artist. She had these really cool designs. And this student was like, I want those designs on my fitness clothing. You know, I want to make these really cool leggings with this really cool design on it. And so in class, she was like, can I use my cover letter? Can I be a networking letter? And I was like, heck yeah. And she used it. And sure enough, like now she's got a whole line of fitness clothes out there with this lady's cool swirly art all over the legs. So that's a perspective letter. That's a networking letter. And a networking letter is just like, hey, I saw you do this. I think I'd be an asset to you. I think we could work together. You know, here's my information, let's talk. That's a really cool thing as well. So those are kind of the three main types of letters we're going to talk about that are considered cover letters. Obviously, the main one is the like, you know, cover letter for a job opening that you know exists, right? Like you see a job opening and it's like, hey, I'm the one that wants that job, you know? So here's some of our general tips, right? So general tips I'll put up here. And then we'll talk about like the specifics. So our general tips for writing a cover letter, always, always, always keep the length to 1 page. Your resume and cover letter should both be one page. I know that the 2-page resume thing has gotten more popular in the last few years, but that is much more popular in some of the more traditional like corporate jobs. When it comes to like gyms and things like that, we are still a 1-page like industry. So keep it to 1 page, trust me. I would immediately, so this is true, you know, in the times that I've hired, that is the same thing. Every time I saw a 2-page resume, or if I saw a 2-page cover letter, my opinion totally flipped the other way. I really don't want to make it sound like I was this stingy, stuck-up person when it comes to resumes and cover letters, but like, I don't know if it's just something that happens to anybody who's employing, but I could not help thinking this way when it would happen. Like, I'd see a 2-page resume, it'd probably be a great resume, but instantly that person had like a negative check mark. And I was like, oh, 2 pages. You know, like, or like a cover letter that was 2 pages, like, oh, I don't want to read all that. You know, and it's like I was desperate to find somebody to hire. But I think that's just like, you know, we're all told these kind of things. It's like, you know, you wear a collared shirt when you go out on a nice date. Nobody wrote that rule down. It's just something we all know. That's the 1-page resume. It's the 1-page cover letter. It's an unwritten societal rule in a way. So keep the length to 1 page. Address it to a specific person. This is kind of a cool thing. This is something that shows professionalism, but it's also a good way to show that like you are super gung-ho about like getting this job and you've done your research. So address the letter to a specific person. So what's cool about that is like you literally get to find out who it is you are writing that letter to. That shows that you put the effort in to do a little bit of research. One of my favorite things to do is to usually like borrow a friend's phone and call whatever place I think I'm getting a job for, and be like, hi, and I'll just use like a fake name and be like, what's the name of the manager? Who is the person who's in charge of like hiring? And then like make sure they don't know that it's going to be me. Ask a bunch of nosy questions. I will be as annoying as I need to be because I'm just trying to gather information and they're not going to know it was me. And then I'll wait a little bit and I'll address that person specifically. And that person will go, wow, I wonder how this guy knew exactly. He must be really good at looking stuff up on the internet. Hopefully that didn't sound too creepy, but that's one of the things that I like to do when it comes to like, you know, writing a letter. It's cool because like, if you do that, if you call it and get a little bit of information about the place, you can also, when you're writing your cover letter, you know, put special emphasis on the things that are important to that job. Like for instance, when I was applying for my job up in Malibu at the resort, you know, my friend Rebecca got me that interview. Like she worked there prior and she was like, hey, you know, if you're looking for a trainer, I've got a friend who's really great. And so like I asked her a few like key questions. I was like, what's most important to the training staff there? And she was like, it's really important that you're overly professional. I was like, okay, great. And then she was always like, what type of trainers, like what's the personality type like? She's like, well, they're usually like really high energy. And I was like, awesome. So I took like a couple of those tips. And then when I was writing my cover letter, I was like, I'm a highly professional and energetic trainer. I believe in optimism and so I can lay that out. So that's another reason to kind of do your research. And that research will help you address like a specific person. I kind of went off the rails there a little bit, but address the letter to a specific person is definitely helpful. Always spell your names properly. I'm actually not going to put that in the notes, but always spell their name correctly. Make sure you've got it right. God, that is always really weird. Had a guy once call me, you know, I don't know if it was like a typo or what, but he was like, "Dear Mr. Bard." And I was like, okay, well, first off, that's not how you spell Brad. And secondly, like, You know, I don't want to be called Mr. Thompson or anything, but like Mr. Brad is definitely not my title. um, so something to look forward to, though, something to look for. And then use, if you are doing like a normal version, use high quality paper. I mean, that's another one I'm not going to put down, but like, just try to make sure that like if you bring a copy of your cover letter with you to your interview, you're always, you know, bringing like a nice clean copy. One of the things we'll talk about when we get to our interview day, actually, aside from cover letter day, is when you go in for an interview, you should bring a folder with you that has another copy of your cover letter and another copy of your resume, even though you already sent those things and the employer probably printed those things. By having those things with you, it shows that you were forward thinking and professional. And then a folder will keep them from getting wrinkled, which is really important. So using high quality paper kind of fits in with the interview day more than today. Do not send out mass letters or mass mailings. Do not send out form letters or mass mailings. You can, I mean, we are going to create a basic template today, so you get a little bit of experience with your cover letters, but it's not going to be like, hello, Mr. Smith. My name is John, and I'm applying for the position of personal trainer, right? Like, do not send out a freaking letter that sounds like that. That is worse than not sending a cover letter. Just because it shows that you know, clearly you've been like on the job hunt. It takes away like the personal nature of like, you know, it sends the message that you're looking for a job, not for a career. And that's definitely something we want to avoid. Don't send a picture. That one is kind of self-explanatory, but like you do not need to include your picture. I know it's Los Angeles. I know this is like a, you know, it's the town of movies and stuff. But that's not something in our industry. We don't need photos in the personal training. Don't get too personal. It is okay to have like a personal touch in there. You know, again, like I think the best thing that you can do is make sure that your voice is coming through in your cover letter. But don't be like, my cat Fluffy thinks that, you know, don't get too personal with stuff like that. That being said, if you have like a really cool personal journey when it comes to like health and wellness, that actually is something that I think kind of is the reverse of this. I think that is definitely something you can include in your resume or cover letter. Like if you say something like, I'm really passionate about fitness, I've lost over 100 pounds, and I'm in the best shape of my life. I want to work somewhere where I can help others do that. I think that kind of thing is great. Like that is personal, but it shows like your work ethic and stuff. That is definitely something that can break that rule. So don't get too personal. Like don't talk about like your hometown, you know, don't talk about like growing up your best friend, you know. But if you've got something that's directly related to the fitness industry, just keep everything directly related to the fitness industry. And then emphasize your top selling points. Emphasize your top selling points. There we go. And just, you know, you're gonna talk about like what your strengths and weaknesses are. My strengths are definitely when I'm like writing a cover letter, I always emphasize that I'm you know, I take my work very seriously, and it's important for me to work in an environment where I can help as many people as possible. So I'm always committed to being the most effective in whatever capacity that I can be. You know, I don't want to just work somewhere for the sake of working somewhere. You know, that part of my life is over. And so like I always emphasize that, and it, you know, is immediately something that comes up in the interview. People are like, yeah, it sounds like you're really like passionate about it, and like you know what you want. It's like, yeah, I definitely know what I want, you know. And so like that's something that I always emphasize when I'm writing my letter. Left justify, I'm not gonna put that up here, but yeah, don't write a cover letter that's like centered, you know, like it's not a book report, it's a cover letter. Everything is pushed to, you know, on a left line. It should be single spaced. At the very most, you can do like a little bit of extra spacing. Like don't go to 1.5, that's way too much spacing. Definitely don't do double spaced. But if you do like 1.1 for like the paragraphs and then like larger space between paragraphs, that can be okay. That can look kind of like a nice format. But generally single space is going to be what you go for. So single spaced margins, not margins, single space, ooh, I don't know those single space paragraphs. And 1-inch margins. Again, the margins thing, if you can adjust it a little bit, but generally use 1-inch margins. If your resume does not fit in 1-inch margins and you're trying to make those margins smaller so you can fit more words into your cover letter is too long. So use 1-inch margins. That's a really great way to make sure that you're not, over talking. And that's coming from me, the world's most over-talker. And then list your return address. Yeah. Now that one, I'm actually not going to include up here. List return phone number and email. So in your very traditional cover letters, which some of the examples on here are definitely examples of, when you're writing it, it's like you have your address, name, address, phone number, email. A lot of that stuff. Now, in today's day and age, that is becoming less and less important. And then now sometimes people are, avoiding putting out, I know some people are avoiding putting their address just because they don't want people to know what area of town they work in. If you want to still include the closest to an address that you can get, there's nothing wrong with just putting Los Angeles, California, just so that it shows that you're in like the right part of town. You can put, Sherman Oaks, California, Van Nuys, California. You can put whatever if you're applying for a job. Every now and then, it's like considered. When I see somebody put like Los Angeles, I'm like, oh, do they mean downtown? Or do they just mean like this greater area? So then it's a question that I have to ask when I get to the interview. It's like, hey, do you live near work? Because that's something I care about. I don't want my, people to be late. And yeah, I do give a little extra emphasis to somebody who lives closer rather than somebody who lives far away. That's why on job applications it says, do you have reliable transportation? Now I would totally hire somebody who doesn't have reliable transportation. I would totally hire somebody who doesn't live close as long as they're committed to getting to work on time. But it's something that I need to make sure that I'm mentioning during the interview. It's like, all right, well, you're going to be working 5 days a week and like work starts at this time. I want to make sure that you're always going to be here. Can you commit to that? And it's like, they're like, yeah, of course. And it's like, okay, great. Then we can move forward. So you can do return address, but if that makes you uncomfortable, you can just do the town. Even that is actually going out of style at this point. A lot of people are just putting their phone number and email. And nowadays, another thing that's like coming into style that's not addressed here, a lot of people nowadays are putting their social media accounts. If your social media is related to this industry and it's related to like your success as a personal trainer, you can put stuff like that. But similar to what I said yesterday, if your Instagram has like photos of you, doing shots at your cousin's wedding, I mean, it's a wedding. All of us are going to party, I think that's a universally accepted friggin' thing in this world. But it's not the type of thing that you want to have. It's not something that shouts, I'm in the health and wellness industry, so if you have like a specific social media account that is like, hey, I've been working in the fitness field for a few years. Here's some stuff of me, working out. And then here's stuff with me working out with friends. And here's stuff with me training people. Okay, if that's the only thing, the stuff that's on there and like you have a pretty good following, go for it. Like that stuff you can include on your resume and it's not tacky looking. And then mention the date that it was listed. That's always like a really nice touch as well, because it shows that like you put the effort in right away and you sent that letter in like the same day that they got it. It also just helps give them like a frame of reference for how long you've been interested in this job and maybe how quickly they can get back to you. Or need to get back to you rather. So mention the date when the letter was written below the return address. So when you look at it, it'll be like return address, your name, and then the date, and then underneath it's like, hello, my name is blah, blah, blah. And you get into your letter. Okay, so cover letters are going to consist of 3 to 4 paragraphs. It's typically been 3. I'm sure a lot of people in the call right now who have maybe been through classes like this in the past have been like, whoa, 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 yeah, it's always 3. But 4 has been becoming more popular in the last few years, which is why like we're seeing more and more of it. And that's just because with the advent of email, it's kind of changed how we write letters. A lot of email, it used to be the way letters were written was like big, hello, big paragraph, big paragraph, big paragraph, goodbye, name. Now, like thanks to the invention of email, it's a lot of times we're having this like, hello, big paragraph, big paragraph, big paragraph. Thanks for taking the time to read this. Like, talk to you soon. And it's like it's almost like it's not a paragraph, it's almost more of a like just like a small sentence by itself that is like a closing salutation. It's just like a closing see you later that's a little more polite than bye. And so we're going to see a little bit of 4-paragraph information here. I think the examples that I'm giving out are going to be 4-paragraph versions. If you want to keep it to 3 paragraphs, that's okay. Like that's still a very classic version. But modern cover letter content. So first paragraph. What is the first paragraph for? What's its purpose? It's to introduce where you found the job posting. So this sounds a little weird, but you do not want to get right into, I'm a really great personal trainer, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, in the first paragraph, the first thing you want to say is like, hi, I found your job on Indeed.com. I found your job on Glassdoor.com. Now, why does everybody do that? I think it's just an easier way to introduce yourself to somebody that you don't necessarily know, and you got to convince to kind of read this first letter. So honestly, your first paragraph is not very much about you. It is just your chance. It's the same way that we all say how you doing and wave at the same time. What I mean is like it's just part of like this unwritten rule of what we expect to see in something. And so honestly, the first thing you're just going to say is like where you found the job posting. And that's something everybody should include. Is it important to the job that you're actually applying for? Not necessarily, but it is just part of like, it'd be very weird for you. It will feel awkward to the person reading your cover letter if you do not include that part. Also, they could possibly be hiring for multiple departments. So they do also want to know, what the specific job you're hiring for. If you are applying for a company that is hiring, like, they're filling like the front desk staff and the sales staff and the personal trainers, you do want to make it clear like what section you're applying for. So introduce where you found the job posting and what position you're applying for. How did you find, whoops, not bold. Right. Hello, I found your job on Indeed. Right. Why are you, what specific position you're applying for. That's another part of this. And then you may allude to what your career goals and objectives are. So your opening paragraph could be something like, hello, and then, your name and stuff, right? My name is Brad, my outgoing personality, my finance experience, right? These are like really weird examples. My finance experience and my recently completed education make me a strong candidate for a position as a financial analyst within your company. That does not include where they found the job posting. I do not like that example now. Let's retool it just a little bit. Hello, my name is Brad, and I found your job posting on Indeed.com. My outgoing personality, my finance experience, and recently completed education make me a strong candidate for the position of financial analyst within your company, right? So like you now have included like where you found the job posting, what your name is, and specifically what position you're applying for. Let's retool this and say, hello, my name is Brad Thompson. I found your job posting on Craigslist.com. outgoing personality, personal training experience, and recently completed education, making a strong candidate for boot camp instructor within your company. Right? We retooled it. We got a very simple version. Again, don't send out form letters. You should be reformatting this, based on whatever job it is you're applying for. But that's a pretty solid opening paragraph. So we'll have some examples like that that I'm going to send out today. Or I wanted to apply for a position as a salesperson within your company. I recently read an article which highlighted your company as the fastest growing leaders in the business to business sector. So that's where they found the job posting, right? This is not so much, actually, this actually isn't an example of a job posting. This is an example of oh my God, I just said it a minute ago. Prospective cover letter. So it's like, maybe there isn't a job posting, maybe there is. I want to work for your company though, either way. So that's a really good example of that. Now your second paragraph, this is where you start to get into the meat of things, right? Second paragraph, this is your meat and potatoes. So describe your recent skills, work experience, and or education. So this is where you're going to be like, hey, I went to Sochi. I'm a really great trainer who learned a lot of stuff. I'm a lot better than somebody who just, read some stuff online and went out and took a test. This is where you're really starting to cater yourself and show off your biggest strengths. Or, at this point, I don't even talk about my education. I don't talk about how much education I have when it comes to cover letters anymore. I also don't put very much emphasis on my resume anymore. Instead, I've been in the industry long enough that I let my experience speak for my experience. No, I trapped myself into a corner with that sentence. I let my experience speak for my ability. Yeah. So highlight your past work. Highlight your skills that set you apart. This is almost like you're beginning to allude to the kind of stuff that they are going to read on your resume. So highlight past work experience, and then how will those past experiences help you fulfill the duties of the position you're applying for, right? So you can actually be like, hey, I'm applying for the position of boot camp instructor. I used to teach boot camps in North Hollywood Park, right? Or I used to work for this company that did a lot of large group exercise. I have experience running boot camps. I know how to work with large groups of people. This is where you start catering yourself more specifically. Again, one more reason why we don't just write a standard, the same cover letter for every job you're applying for. And then you can also emphasize any specific problems that you've solved or any achievements that you've accrued. How can you emphasize achievements and problems you have solved? Right, so this is also a good chance where you're like, I saw that you're hiring for a boot camp instructor. I used to work in a boot camp. I had some of the highest numbers in sales when I worked there. That's a really good example of something like that. So there's a chance where you start kind of showing off a little bit, right? This is where you start emphasizing your strengths. So as a recent graduate of the San Francisco School for Business, I put myself through school by working jobs in advertising, sales, and retail. So this person's showing that's look, I multitasked, right? I went to school and I worked. I feel the business experience helped solidify my work ethic and build on my formal education. Very, very, very formal letter there, right? But it just shows that hey, I did this and I think that's going to lend to this job. The reason you're also going to mention that I think it's going to lend me in this job is because it is giving you an opportunity to show that you know a little bit about the job that you're applying for, because you've done your research. So that is very helpful. If you highlight something where you're like, hey, I worked at a car lot selling cars, and I got the award for most cars sold in the month of May 2009. That's actually a great achievement, and that is awesome, but it might not directly relate it shows that you might not have perspective on the job that you're applying for. Again, if you do your research and you know about the job you're applying for, and then you say something specifically related to that, it's going to show this person's going to be impressed that like you know what it is you're talking about, and it puts them in the frame of mind to think of you as somebody who is already like a candidate. It's a similar technique to like when we're doing like personal training sales. I mean, you guys have heard me, do examples of like fitness assessments before, and you've heard me say stuff like, so when we're working together in the next few weeks, so as we move forward in our program, I'm going to be able to change it up for you in 4 weeks. And like we're speaking in a frame of reference that is as if we've already agreed to work together. This is a chance to do that. Like if you're talking about experience that is related to what job you're applying for, it just puts that person in a frame of mind that's like, I am gonna hire them because I'm, or they're gonna go, oh, well, because I'm gonna hire them, this is good that they did that. It's like you've already kind of like hacked their brain a little bit in making them think that you are the candidate who's getting hired. So that's definitely something we're looking for. Here's another one that's education related. This year, I will receive my BA degree from Highland University with a dual degree in econ and art history. I've recently developed my senior thesis exploring poster art in America, for which I've been awarded academic honors. So that one, if I remember right, they're applying for a job at an advertising agency. So it's like showing like, look, I know a lot about poster art, which is what your company does. You're an ad company, And so like you're, again, further tailoring yourself specifically to this job, which is exactly what we're going to do in our third paragraph. So third paragraph, you're really going to tailor it specifically to what it is you're applying for. Now, in some versions, third paragraph could just be going straight into your closing. You may have already got enough information in the first and second paragraphs directly related to what it is you're applying for. But a lot of times, since that first paragraph is just like, hello, I found your job posting here and I think I'd be a good candidate, doesn't give you a lot of information to talk about yourself. And a lot of times your closing paragraph is like, goodbye, you can contact me here and here. So because that tends to be kind of small, this is where we get like the third paragraph is additional content here. So you're going to continue tailoring yourself to the job description. So this is where you can give specific examples. Again, you are showing off that you know what this job entails because you did your research. So use the duties and requirements listed in the job posting to further elaborate on what you bring to the company. Right, so this is a chance where like you actually kind of want to go line by line and talk about some strengths that are directly related to the job posting. Did I leave it open? I did, thank God. All right, so check it out. NCCA accredited primary trainer certification. National Commission for Certifying Agencies, right? NASM. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Current .fit certification. That must be like something that's Crunch specific. But take a look here. They put a little bit of information at the bottom. Do you know our Crunch philosophy? And you guys know Crunch's tagline, their catchphrase is no judgments, right? And so there are no judgments here, no glares of disapproval. We keep open minds, we are nurturers. All right, right there, we've already got enough for, we got enough information. We instantly have what we need. So if I were writing a cover letter, I could instantly be like, I love Crunch's no judgments policy. I feel really strongly about that when it comes to the fitness industry as well. I love, we, as a personal trainer, we all love enhancing people's lives. And we want to make an environment where everyone can feel comfortable to come in and better themselves. That's on the fly, not my best work. But like that's an example, first draft. But that's an example of like how you can use the information in the job posting to directly cater yourself and start appealing to this person. So use the duties listed to elaborate on why you are the perfect fit for the company. And then how can your experience help you within the company? right? How can what you've done in the past help? And a lot of you guys are coming right out of school. You know, you might not have worked in the fitness industry before, but we have taught you like a little bit about sales. We've taught you a little bit about like corrective exercise, how to talk to people, work with clients. So like that is information you can bring to the table. Let's take a look here. There is no one type, there's no one reason, there's no one word, diverse community, culture, room for everyone, athletes, boxing champions. No one size fits all. That's probably a good one right there, actually. We have a common thread and passion for clients and their results. Cool. I mean, that's all right. So that kind of was the same, They're definitely got like one consistent message throughout this whole thing. But there is no one size fits all. It's always nice to like pull a specific quote out in your resume. I'm sorry, in your cover letter, and shows that you really did pay a lot of attention. And so if you drop the word like, I'm a firm believer when it comes to program design, to write programs and train each person as an individual, because I believe there's no one size fits all. Or you could say, because like Crunch, I believe there's no one size fits all when it comes to fitness. The more specific you are, the greater your results are going to be. So little things like that, just cater yourself specifically. Again, I'm making this up on the fly, and that may not be necessarily my best work, but like you can see what I'm starting to do as I'm like writing a fake cover letter here is thinking of like specific examples from the job posting. So at university, I focused on extracurricular efforts on writing and editing for the local newspaper. Again, this is for an ag company. Subscriptions increased when I was editor by 10%. So it shows off a little bit about like something this person has achieved. And again, it is catered directly towards the job that they are posting for. Now, your fourth paragraph is not really even a paragraph. So request an interview and offer contact information. Thanks for, do not use the phrase, thank you for reading my cover letter. Everybody uses that phrase and it is a dead horse. So don't use that phrase. But you can say something like, thank you for your time, or something simple like that. But generally just keep things short and professional. I'd love to have an interview. Here's my contact information. Thank you very much. Done. Keep it short, keep it professional. Keep it short, keep it professional. Include your cell phone and email information. I don't think this is a great place to put social media. I think really this is the only stuff that belongs here. The only stuff that belongs here is your phone number and email. Again, social media actually can be something that people are leveraging in resumes and cover letters nowadays. But usually it's not like, look at how many Instagram followers I got. If you put your Instagram, put it in the top corner as part of your contact information. I'll show you an example of that in just a little bit. Or if you have a personal website, put it up there. Don't just include it. Don't be like, follow me on Instagram in your cover letter. Definitely not something you're looking for. Thanks for reading my cover letter. Here's my cell phone and email information. You can slide into my DMs if you contact me here. Yeah, don't do that. And if you are applying out of state, include any information on when you're going to be in the area. One of the things that I really like to do is include your availability. Your availability for phone or in-person interviews. So you can say like, hey, I'll be in the area in March between the 15th and the 30th. I'd love to have an opportunity to meet if you were applying for a job out of state or like somewhere where you're traveling. But a smaller version of that is, you want this person to call you and set up an interview. one of the things that shows that you are currently a working professional, like I like to show that I'm available, but I like to show that I'm not too available. Like, you know, my Sochi schedule is I work from like 8:30 to about 2:30, right? And so like I'll say, hey, I'm available to talk Monday through Friday, anytime after 2:30. That's a great way to like show somebody specifically. It's almost like you're telling them when to call you, which again, that little like under the surface, like almost like a command, actually draws people in and makes them say like, I do want to call this person, right? So here's some really, really, really fast ones. I look forward to speaking with you further regarding any sales related opportunities with company X. I can be reached on my cell phone at so-and-so. That's great. This is a solid closer. Again, not really a paragraph, right? It's more of a sentence. Here's an example of somebody who's like out of town. I intend to visit the Chicago area early in April to prepare to move to the city this summer. I would appreciate the opportunity to meet with you during my upcoming trip to discuss any possibility of my employment within your company. Doesn't have phone number, doesn't have email. It's not bad, but I would definitely include that information in there as well. Again, it's already at the top, but mentioning it as often as possible. Right? Contact info, contact info, contact info. In terms of like reference request letters, you know, you want to send information out to like, you know, consider who you want to be your reference, make up a list, and then consider the best candidates, write a letter for each of those candidates and send it out being like, hey, here's our personal history. Here's why I'd like to use you as a reference. Would you agree to that? Again, this is a very formal thing. If you're sending a letter to somebody who's a reference, in my personal opinion, and this is a personal opinion that obviously contradicts sort of what we're saying here. I think if you have to write a letter to somebody to ask them as a reference, you probably don't know that person well enough for them to be one of your references. That's sort of the world we're in nowadays. That being said, in corporate America, some people, you know, they have like a higher up that they've only met a handful of times. Reference request letters like that make perfect sense. In our industry, stuff is, you know, usually rubbing elbows with your management. So this is not super relevant to us. When you do it, make sure you include like a thank you note, provide a reference to the job description that you're actually applying for. Part of that is just, again, they now know what to talk about. You know, if I know that you're applying for a job at Crunch and Crunch and you use me as a reference and Crunch calls me, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, in class, they were very helpful to everybody around them. You know, I'm going to say something like that because I know that shows that you have a no judgments style. And I'm trying to help you get that freaking job. Job declination letters, these are really great. It just shows that you're professional and doesn't burn that bridge. If you are applying for jobs, chances are you're not applying for just one job. You're probably applying for as many as possible to get yourself hired. Oh boy. And so, sorry, 1 second, I closed my window. There's something going on in Van Nuys again. Include like, you know, saying something like, hey, thank you so much for the offer. I have been applying other places and I think I'm going to go with that job. Be polite, be brief. It's usually just 1 or 2 paragraphs in length. Thank them for their time. And don't say something, you know, avoid like derogatory statements like, yeah, your company sucks and I didn't actually want to work there anyways later, you know, like, don't do something like that. But usually this comes after like an interview. You know, you'll go through the process of your resume, cover letter, and interview. And if you decide to go with another direction, that's fine, you know. That's a declination letter. And the reason you do that is because, like, let's say things don't work out, this job that you did get, now you've made sure that you didn't burn that bridge. So summary, cover letters need to be well structured and well scripted. It should help identify and distinguish yourself from somebody else. It's the first document somebody's going to see. It's your first point of contact, so that's really important. And it should give you the competitive edge over somebody who didn't write a cover letter. And that's really about all of our PowerPoint today. Do you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns? How you guys feeling about all that?
Pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a little different than some of the other industries. You know, like personal training is very, you know, it's full of passionate people who are trying to make people healthier. You know, so our job is unique in a lot of ways because it is not only like very passionate, it's also pretty important. You know, like people's health is something we want to get out there and affect. You know, and so the tone of your cover letter is a little different. You know, it doesn't have to be very overly professional. You know, if your passion shines through, that's a good thing. But you can show that you are professional by making sure that it's like formatted specifically. Um, Again, God, I'm judging myself here, but I have tried. When I'm reading cover letters, I cannot help but in the back of my head think of this like whole format. Like if I see 5 paragraphs, I'm like, ooh, 5 paragraphs, didn't follow the unwritten rules. You know, like it's like you know, it's these little judgments that we all make all the time. So I want to make sure that yours is as successful as possible. So if you don't have any questions, we're going to go ahead and end today's call. I'm going to be sending out um, a link with information. So basically, we're going to use, you know, Google Docs is something that basically everybody can have access to, whether you're Apple or, you know, PC or on your phone. If you make yourself a Gmail account, we can go to a place like Google Docs, and we can take a look at like a cover letter here. If the darn thing will open, so you click it. You click it. He said, as it opened, there we go. And you know, it has like information here. This you know, this is just like random ass Latin. But you know, if I go here and I just delete that and I say like Brad Thompson, let's say I'm uncomfortable putting my actual address, I can just go Van Nuys, California. 9, right? I can do that. I can put my phone number in there.
Can you screen share again?
I just realized, oh, I don't have it on screen share, but I did just realize this is going to go up on YouTube later, so I'm going to put a fake phone number. Okay, you're going to go to Google. You're going to go to Google Docs. God dang it. Docs.google.com, and they have these pre-made resumes, pre-made cover letters. So I can open up this letter that was already up here. They're all going to be in the template gallery. So resume. I like them all, by the way. Informal letters. I don't like the informal letter. Don't do this one because it's the informal letter. Business letter, although the problem with the business letter is it's got some geometric shape stuff on it that I think you probably want to delete. So like this picture stuff here. That stuff, get rid of stuff like that, which is really easy. You just double click it and delete it. And there we go. Now it's a standard cover letter. I'm gonna have a million like messed up versions now. And then, you know, these other formats are up here. So pick a format that you like. I went with Spearmint here. I think this is a really clean, very basic version. And so I'm just gonna go Brad Thompson. Let's say again, like I said, I'm uncomfortable putting my full address, so I'm just going to put Van Nuys, California. I'm going to put my phone number. And then my email, right? So Brad something at gmail.com. Nobody's watching these videos except our students, but I don't know. Who knows if I forget to delete this darn thing someday and then this comes back to bite me. So then we'll put like the date, right? So it's the, I actually don't really like this format, so I'm just gonna go with 6/3/2020. And then here's where you put the name of whoever it is you're applying for. So let's say it's Bob Strongman, and he is the program director at let's, you know, My Health and Wellness retreat. So like, let's say like that's where, he's the program director here and here. Again, it shows that you did your research. You know exactly who you are applying to, right? And then, you would put the address of that company there. We'll just leave that alone, right? So dear Mr. Strongman, and then you would put you would include all those basic sentences. So I've got a version that I'm going to send you guys that is not bad. It's, there's a couple different templates out there, but here's like our example here, right? This is an example not using this Google Docs version. This is another really simple format out there. The information goes up here instead, and here's who we're applying to. It's Mr. Frank Gaines at Equinox. And so, hello, I wish to apply for a position of personal trainer within your company. I recently read your ad on Indeed.com, and I believe my experience and recently completed education make me a strong candidate for a position within your company. As a recent grad of Southern California Health Institute, I'm in an ASM CPT. One thing, actually, I want to include this in your notes. Don't forget this. This is going to be on your resume as well. Do not use acronyms. Write out the whole. Don't use NASM. Say National Academy of Sports Medicine. The only example is like if you say CPT, you're a certified personal trainer. Like a license is one thing, but the name of a company, like don't write Sochi, write Southern California Health Institute. CPR, right? That's a cert. You can go with stuff like that. That's okay. Like the name of a license is one thing, but try to avoid using acronyms for companies you've worked for in the past. While in school, we learned to evaluate and develop health and wellness solutions for a wide variety of clientele. Oh, this is so dorky. I forgot to put a signature down there. Motivating people to work towards a common worthwhile goal is something that I find hugely enjoyable and rewarding. I have the maturity, skills, and abilities to have a successful career as a personal fitness professional. One's okay. I have experience providing personalized attention and professional instruction to my clients, as well as implementing solutions to my clients' unique needs and goals. That's great. If you want to steal that sentence, that's a solid one. I look forward to speaking with you further about any employment opportunities with Equinox Woodland Hills. I can be reached at blah, blah, blah. Right? It's barely even a paragraph, right? So you introduced yourself, talked about where you found the job posting. You talked about your most recent industry experience, why you are specifically good for that company, and your contact information. Sincerely, and then your name. If it's a physical copy, sign the darn thing. So I'll be sending you guys a link to a Google Doc that you can, or like, I'll send you examples of a Google Doc. You can go in and make your own links and download those. And then we'll get those written and sent to me. That way I can kind of help you one-on-one with your cover letter and make sure that it's like really solid looking. That way, by the time this whole course is over, everybody's walking out of here with a resume and cover letter, which is what's most important. I want to make sure everybody's got what they need by the time they get to our career services. And that way you guys can start interviewing and getting a job, maybe even before you freaking graduate, we want that time period to be as short as possible. So questions, comments, concerns?
No, that was good.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for coming. We had a small group today, but I hope it was helpful. Yeah, I'll kick everybody out of here. And then I'll be sending you guys some stuff in just a little bit with, I think I'm going to probably send, you might get 2 emails from me today. I'm trying to figure out the best format. I might be able to send out a mass one, but sometimes that might mean that like people can edit other people's versions. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen. So you might get 2 emails from me today. One, the big mass email with all the YouTube lecture information and stuff and the Canvas stuff. And then another one that might just be like, hey, Jay, here's your link to a resume thing or a cover letter thing. Send, edit this and send it back to me. So it'll depend. But that's about it. See everybody tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys.
All righty, bye, Brad. Bye, everybody.